Hello, boils and ghouls. Welcome to episode 157 of Dads from the Crypt. My name is Jason. I'll be your host this evening. With me, we got Jody
Hello.
and Mondo.
Hello.
And returning to us is our good friend Joe Ferry.
What's going on, guys? How are you?
Good.
Fully unprepared for this.
Yeah, this is an interesting night. We are ditching our old recording platform and trying something new. So things might be a little bit different, but we're working out some kinks. And we're just going to shame Jody off the top that he did not watch the movie this week.
Okay, let me clarify. I was fully intending on doing what I normally do, which is cramming the movie in the last little bit of time before watching it, just because I have kids. I'm busy. It's hard to squeeze in a movie. But then I took my kids. I'll just continue to blame them for everything. It actually works pretty well. I took my kids to an event tonight and grabbed a little fast food from a restaurant I won't mention by name, but I did not have it my way because when I had it, it poisoned me. Not fully poisoned me, but enough that I felt real bad for a while. I did not get to watch the movie. You can blame a certain king with a creepy mask
Of the
face.
burger.
Yes.
Squeezing things in is how you have so many kids. Like, maybe you should,
Jody still hasn't learned that lesson. That's why he has so many.
Hey, the youngest one is 8. That has been an 8-year period of no new children appearing in my house. So maybe the curse is over.
or the vasectomy worked. One of the two.
or that.
All right, Joe, why don't you give us any updates? What you got going on?
We are busy over at Films at First Sight. We've been covering some older films and some newer films. Our coverage of Ganymede in full, actually, that we saw, Jody and I saw at Chattanooga Film Fest, is about to drop. And yeah, we are normally we like to approach spooky season like, okay, let's cover horror films. But I think this time we're grabbing a bunch of people that are known for essentially being in the horror podcast community and getting them to cover a whole bunch of stuff that is outside of their normal purview. It's going to be a lot of fun.
That's cool.
That's awesome. And are you guys still doing No Film Left Behind?
We are, yes. As soon as I actually sit down and finish editing, but we certainly have stuff in the hopper.
That is
The hopper's...
It is a podcast that is always in process in some way. We are always at some point in production. We are either going to film or we have one ready, but we're both here and not here at the same time.
Whoa.
The best thing is it's never left behind.
That's right.
Can you give us a teaser on what your next subject is or any recent subjects?
Yes. So the upcoming episode for No Film Left Behind is going to be a double feature featuring Tracy Lords in a slasher film, as well as Jody. What was that? I forget. Why am I forgetting the other film that we covered? Because it was Skinned.
Yeah.
Or Skinner.
Faceless? Was it Faceless?
And yes, and then
Bridget
Faceless.
Mhm.
Sorry. So we hopped over to France for another adult film star to again be in a slasher. That one with an amazing song that you hear way too much.
So much.
Nice. Cool. All right. Well, tonight we are continuing with our staff picks. Mondo got to choose again, and he chose one I never even heard of. I feel like I've seen the iconography from this movie, but I definitely haven't watched this one. So, Mondo, why don't you give us a little background, what this movie means to you, why you chose it, and then you can tell us what this movie's about.
Yeah, the obvious one I would have gone with is The Beyond, but I think everybody's seen that. So I kind of want to do something you guys haven't seen before. I kind of fell in love with the Coffin Joe films when I was younger. A band I was a big fan of, Necrophagia, used to reference them and actually used him on one of their album covers. And I kind of dug into it because I heard about this boogeyman from Brazil. And very anti-religion, anti-spirit kind of movies, which is funny because the director, the person who plays Mr. Joe, is actually Catholic, I believe. But like a lot of good kind of satanic themed horror, it's a lot of times it's written by people who are not on that. They're kind of looking in the mirror at bizarro world and extracting from that. So I kind of took there's a part in this movie where he does a whole soliloquy saying like, I don't believe in any of this. I don't believe in any of you. I don't believe in heaven. I don't believe in hell. As a young man and as an adult, I kind of still have that mentality. And when I was younger and more rebellious and was raised Catholic, that really resonated with me, and kind of the darkness and the evil of this resonated with me. And I watched it, and the atmosphere and the visuals and the violence in this is disturbing at many levels. And I thought that this ended up being just like one of those films that kind of hooked me right away. And then I ended up watching the whole trilogy. And just for anybody out there, Arrow has a fantastic 4K box set with all of the Coffin Joe films.
I think he's up to 10 films now, right? Is it 10 total?
Something like that. This is part of the trilogy he did. There's this one, then there's This Night I'll Possess Your Corpse is the second one, which came out I think in 68 or maybe something like that.
Late 60s,
this came out in
67,
67. Okay. And then 2008, 41 years later, came in The Embodiment of Evil, which is it's kind of polarizing. I loved it, but I do think that you appreciate it more if you've seen the other films. And then Awakening of the Beast was kind of originally considered part of the trilogy, but it really doesn't tie in. But that one does have some cool like LSD inspired scenes, I think.
So, I mean, Joe, you said there's 10 of these. So do other people play Coffin Joe, or is it like spin-offs?
It's still him. It's still him.
It's still him.
He did everything. I mean, in Brazil, he was actually very, very popular. And he even had a talk show at one point.
As in character?
Yes.
Oh, man, I want to watch that.
Well, in character to an extent. It's kind of like when you see a pro wrestler do an interview and they try to keep the character, but they still pull the curtain back. And but it's kind of crazy when, like, I don't know a lot of Brazilian people, I'm not going to lie. But I would love to talk to someone from Brazil who maybe an older person who grew up in this era and what their thoughts were of this when they saw it, or if they knew about it when they were younger. Because like when we were kids, we knew about Freddy, we knew about Jason, even though we technically weren't old enough to watch it because they were just such a part of the cultural zeitgeist. And I really wonder how that translated over to Brazil, especially when Brazil got their communist dictatorship regime in there, which kind of spurred the whole Brazilian heavy metal scene, which I'll talk about later.
Yeah, I mean, I get going based on what I read on IMDb that this is like the first Brazilian horror movie, and it was like extremely popular. So it seems like almost like a Dracula, almost not specifically, but like that aura of character that just like instantly becomes ingrained into a society. All right, Mono, explain this movie to us.
All right, I'm gonna do my best because I was not prepared to synopsize this. It's all right, Jody. It's all right. So don't hold me to Jody standards.
My rambling that I normally do.
Your synopsis or chef's kiss. So Coffin Joe, or how he's referred to in Brazil as Zé do Caixão. Any Portuguese speakers out there, please feel free to send us the proper pronunciation of that. He's an undertaker that kind of is just very anti-religion, and he's in a small Brazilian town, and he's basically feared by all these townspeople because he's the gravedigger, because he's Coffin Joe. And his whole goal in life is to continue his bloodline. He wants a son. He's married, and he kills his wife because she can't give him a son. So he chloroforms her, I believe, ties her down, and puts a tarantula on her, which kills her. Yeah, Jason's already making a face because we'll call it a funnel web spider for our Australian friends out there. Because those look like tarantulas and they'll kill you.
I love the fact that your two of your favorite movies have gratuitous spider scenes, and you hate spiders.
Yeah, but you know what? Again, it's something visceral. But again, though, it's a spider. It's not like I can't watch that movie infested because I can deal with one spider. I can't deal with 1,000 spiders. Yeah, that's just too much for me.
But also, there's an interesting one thing I love about films of this era is that they're so experimental in what they can and can't do. So they show like a montage of all the kills you're about to see.
Yes, and they do some really neat things. Like I love the effects they show when Coffin Joe gets upset. You see his eyes turn red, and that effect is cool. And I'd like to think that Lucio Fulci might have seen these movies and said, you know what? I also don't like eyes. Because Coffin Joe does not like eyeballs. Yeah, he ends up. So there's a lot of. I don't want to get too in depth with this because we'll break it down when we get there. But essentially, he wants a son, so he kills his wife. And the doctor in this, I forgot his name off the top of my head, but he basically suspects Coffin Joe right away because he's like, it's probably that creepy gravedigger guy. He probably. And let's be honest, if any of our wives suddenly died in any tragic manner, we are suspect number one, and as you should be. It's usually the fucking husband that does it, right? But
Hey,
and
not
then
all
later
men.
on, then
Not all
choose
husbands.
dude, I fucking choose the bear too, ladies. I get it. Believe me.
I get it.
So then they also bring up his friend Antonio, who's his best friend by mind. They say several times it's his best friend, and his girlfriend's soon to be wife, Teresina. And Coffin Joe tries to steal Teresina away very forcefully. Not okay. Consent, guys. Consent. Tries to steal her away forcibly. And then she says, no, I'm going to go back to Antonio. I won't tell him about this, but this isn't going to happen again. So later on, Antonio says, well, I want to go talk to this fortune teller. So Coffin Joe reluctantly goes along. And the fortune teller tells Antonio, you're never going to get married because something bad is going to happen. So, and then he also tells Coffin Joe, something to the effect of like, don't mock the supernatural because you will pay for your crimes. And then so Coffin Joe responds to this by drowning Antonio in a bathtub and then buying Teresina a bird, which she's like, cool, I know my husband's dead and you probably did it, but I'll take this bird, that's fine. And then he starts to kind of touch her. She tries to resist and he just beats the hell out of her in a very brutal scene. And I honestly wonder how that resonated with a 1960s crowd when it was, sad to say, socially acceptable to do that, which thank Christ we're not in that era anymore. 60 years later, we finally realize, or most of us that are on the left have realized you shouldn't put your hands on a woman. So then he does it. So he basically beats her up and then rapes her to try to get his son. She finally wakes up, curses him, and says, that's it, I'm going to kill myself because I'm not going to give you a son, and then I'm going to take you to hell myself. And Coffin Joe's like, that's not going to happen. So she hangs herself, and then she doesn't even blame, and she leaves a suicide note and doesn't blame him at all. And the doctor, once again, is like, I think it's that creepy gravedigger guy. Like, two women close to him now have now been murdered. I think it's him. So Coffin Joe goes to his house and gouges his eyes out and sets him on fire, which is a really cool, I thought, effect. And later on, he eventually, again, so he's never been punished for any of this. And then he meets another young woman and he goes, I'm going to take you home. And then the gypsy shows up and she goes, tonight, your soul is going to be claimed by Satan at midnight. So he leaves and goes to the graveyard and where Antonio and Teresina are buried, and then he pulls their coffins open, and these nice grotesque shots of their corpses with maggots and worms and stuff. I think there were worms crawling along their faces, and then he's freaking out. He does this big anti-religion monologue, which I love, and then eventually the townspeople come and they find Coffin Joe with his face like torn apart, his eyes bulging out, looking destroyed, and then you hear the coup de grace, you hear the church bells ring because the church bells ring at midnight, and at midnight his soul has been taken.
Right there in the title.
I totally missed the part though too. I love the part when he goes into the bar and everyone's just terrified of him, and he's asking for more wine, and then he beats the guy in poker, which they don't show him cheat, but they allude to him cheating. And I need to go back and watch this scene because I want to see if someone else because he has 4 aces, and I want to see if they show other people's hands like in a glancing shot, and I want to see if someone else has an ace in their hand. But then when the townsperson won't pay up, he takes a wine bottle, cracks it, and cuts the guy's fingers off. And people don't react too crazy to this, which is surprising. And then someone else
you don't fuck with Coffin Joe.
And then someone else gets mad at him, so he beats the shit out of him with a whip.
Yeah.
And then he says that my favorite lines in the whole movie. He goes, "If I kill you, I'll charge double for your funeral." I was like, "Oh, What
That's
a
some cool ass
bad
shit.
dude. What a bad guy. And what a fantastic beard on that man as well.
Get those nails and everything. All right,
The real
Joe, what do you think of this movie?
You know what? I really like this movie, but I'm also a sucker for mid 60s is like my era, especially when you're getting the kind of opposite of the social tone that you're expected to be getting. Like when we think of 60s, especially in America, it's hopeful. This is so nihilistic. It also may have one of my favorite title sequences from
Yes.
the 60s as all of the cast credits start to turn into his hands and they fall down the screen like it's like some sort of like Scooby-Doo like animate like rotoscoped animation. It's fantastic. Coffin Joe, I actually had a full misconception. I thought he was like a horror host from Brazil.
Oh. I get that though, based on his look, it makes sense. Like, and be fair, he would have been a great horror host.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like he has exactly. He has the perfect look. It turns out he's just like the personification of the sickos meme, except instead of just like wanting weird perverted shit, he just wants to like impregnate women by like the most volatile way and to create this evil offspring. All the while,
I was like, can you
just a
imagine
shoo-in.
Coffin Joe's internet history?
yeah, right. It's-
His
It'd be
subreddit is
nothing but
terrible.
sites that it would immediately have men in black masks dragging you into the jungles of Brazil. Yeah, I loved it. It does. There's parts that don't make a lot of sense. I think one of the best ways to describe like kind of how the environment is around him is it's like the horror equivalent of Tim Robinson's hot dog sketch of like, wait a minute, who's murdering all of these women? Meanwhile, you look like somebody that literally just murdered like 18 women, sir. So-
Speaking of Tim Robinson, I just started watching The Detroiters, and what a fantastic show that is.
It's so funny.
It is amazing. Yeah.
Well, and Joe, I have to contribute something since I didn't watch the show.
Mhm.
But
You said you watched part of it, though, right?
you said he would make a good horror host. In some of the later movies, like The Strange World of Coffin Joe, he basically acts that for like an anthology type thing. Like he's the guy introducing he's the Crypt Keeper in those kind of things.
So that was the first movie I saw of him. I didn't realize that there was like a continuity that I had to follow. When Shudder picked up the Arrow set, I hopped into that one first with zero research as per usual, and then realized like, oh wait a minute, I'm all out of sorts, and I've been meaning to like kind of go back into it, and you guys gave me like the perfect opportunity to do so. And I kind of held off on like usually I'll deep dive a whole bunch of them because you want the full Coffin Joe experience. But I'm worried that a lot like there'd be so much similarity between a few of them in the series that it kind of muddy the waters as to what actually happened when his soul was taken at midnight.
Well, it definitely does, and I do think, although I do like the whole trilogy, I do think the first film would be better if it was just a standalone film and they went to a different story arc. Because do you want me to give the spoiler for what happens at the beginning of the second film?
Yeah, I was about to say, I'm curious.
All it literally is he wakes up in the hospital and he's okay.
Son
That's
of a
literally
bitch.
what it is. And
Jason's been brought back in worst ways. So
yeah, and I think it was just the popularity of the character. It was unexpected, and then when it ended up being popular, it was like, oh well, let's do a sequel. Because the story behind this movie too is that I think he sold his house and made his wife move back in with her parents and like sold all his possessions. Most of the actors and actresses in this were like film students who paid him to be in the movie. Because this is how he got the, and he wasn't doing this to rake in money. He was doing this just to get the money to make the film itself. So it's very interesting that how this film was made. And I know he sold. I know once the film was made too, he sold the rights to somebody, but I don't remember. Like it's probably some Brazilian production company, and ended up breaking even on it.
Yeah, and
Who knows? He came back.
See, once just when I was googling around a bit about there's a supposedly an infamous scene where the crew didn't want to shoot it because the lighting wasn't correct, so he pulled a gun on them.
I didn't read that, but that's amazing. That's some
later-
1950s filmmaking.
Yeah, he pulled a Werner
Some
Herzog, I
Werner
think.
Herzog shit.
Yeah. He said later that the gun was a prop. Maybe not, but so one thing we didn't clarify is that what's up?
If you go into a bank with a prop gun, you're still getting arrested for bank robbery.
Yeah, exactly. Well, and also prop guns in the 60s. So yeah, also this is the same. So the guy who plays Coffin Joe is also the director and writer. So this is like a pure him. Again, according to IMDb, they had a different actor who dropped out at the last minute. So he wasn't planning on it, but he just decided to jump in. Yeah. So
and it was based off dreams he had about being buried alive, basically, and having his soul taken. So that's where he kind of got the idea for it all.
So this is very much like a one-man passion project kind of movie, which sometimes can be really good and sometimes can be not good. But yeah, so I knew nothing about this. I heard Coffin Joe again sounds like a horror host or a wrestler or something, not this like rapey nihilistic goth guy with a whip. That's not exactly what I was expecting for this movie. But that performance he gives is amazing. When they say chew the scenery, he is just gnawing on it and tearing at it in the best ways. Like again, he gives this whole monologue in the opening, and then he gives that monologue at the graveyard, or maybe it's in the funeral home. Monologue, like you're saying something.
No, the second one really kind of dives more into the whole traditional horror aspect of it.
Mm-hmm.
But then if you watch Embodiment of Evil from 2008, he just goes heavy into traditional horror, and because he still plays himself, he still looks like the character, and like you said, he hams it up and leans into it. It still works.
Right. Yeah, I'm very curious to see what this character 40 years later is like. So could I skip the second one and watch the third one?
I would say watch all three.
Okay. I might actually do that because I'm just so curious. So yeah, the character I really liked. The gore was really good. Again, the 60s weren't quite known for going this hard in a lot of films. So I was very happily surprised by that. At least that's just my perception going in. It's a little slow in parts. There's a lot of him kind of stalking around. So I could use a little bit editing in that part. And again, that's also watching a film that as the language of cinema was being developed, or was different than I'm used to. So I got a little bored, but then things just kind of ratchet up every couple minutes.
Yeah, I mean it's the runtime's only an hour and 20, like 1 or 22 minutes, something like that. But it's very reminiscent of the early kind of like the early Val Lewton films, where they use a lot of atmosphere to kind of drive that dread, to kind of drive that home. But I do understand, especially from a modern viewing eye, where that can definitely drag a little bit.
Right. And then and also the subtitles, because sometimes things weren't subtitles. I don't know if that was a Shudder thing or not.
It's not. It's an Arrow thing. They've had issues with the entire set. I know they fixed some of them, but they definitely didn't. Sometimes it's hard, but they did their best, I'll say.
And that's not to the point where like you couldn't tell what was going on, but it just was kind of distracting.
I have the original DVD box set they did, and I'd be interested actually to kind of compare the two and see if the subtitles are that different.
Yeah. So I mean, those are more minor quibbles. Again, this is the kind of movie that you could throw on in the background of a Halloween party. Like if you have an adult client, I would not a kid's Halloween party, definitely, but it's got so much atmosphere, and it's just the character is just so interesting, and the deaths are really gory. Even if they're coming because they showed them to you, which again, it's just such a funny thing to do. But yeah, overall, again, as a timepiece, again, this feels like a prototype for so many other characters that I've seen that you see later. I don't know if it's like people ripping off that, or he was taking other influences. Again, it kind of felt like Dracula on meth in a way, like a really like hyped up Dracula. But he doesn't actually have any powers. He has that eye stare, but does it actually do anything? I was trying to figure it out.
No, he's just an evil dude that wants to continue his bloodline.
Yeah, exactly. Like I was waiting for like him to like turn into something or like have some power, but no, he was just a badass motherfucker.
And he's the ultimate he has a perfect mentality of an antagonist where everything he in his head, everything
Hmm.
he's doing is right and just. He's in his head, he's not the bad guy. These people are the bad people. They're the idiots. He's above them, which certain politicians believe that too. And that's kind of his thing though. But a great antagonist does always have that sense in their head they're right, even though we all know
Right.
they're wrong.
Well, it's interesting because he denounces all religion and basically all morality. Just like it's like completely nihilistic. So it's the question of like, do we need those morals or do we need those structures to be quote good people? He just says, well, if there's no heaven, no hell, I'm just gonna be the biggest bastard I can.
That's a good way to put it. And judging by the fact he is the person who plays him is very religious, that kind of makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
But I'm not religious, and I just don't do bad things because I think I know they're bad things, and I don't feel
Right.
good doing them.
Right, exactly. Well, I mean, that's the question that some people say, like, well, we need religion so people have a moral compass. And that kind of brings up the question of like, is humanity inherently good or evil if you take away all those morality structures?
The way I look at it is if you take a couple of baby wolves, they know not to kill each other, whether they're pack mates or not. And I think it's everybody's morality that like in your heart of hearts, if when you're a child, no one tells you murder is wrong, it's wrong. Ending somebody else's life is incorrect. I do think some things are learned, obviously, but I get what you're getting at there.
Yeah. Well, but there's always the people that will come in and don't have that sense of just don't have that innate
Yes,
sense of morality.
definitely. But I think those people that don't have sense of morality, no religion's gonna
Right.
no
Yes.
change that. Unless you know what, you might have people that really do. You might have people that actually suppress those things because they're afraid of eternal damnation or
I
whatnot.
mean, you can go Dexter on it, but it's interesting that he is an Undertaker. Because he has such disdain for the rituals around death. Like there's the part where he goes into like a cemetery of a recent grave and he like takes the money that I guess people left and like takes the wine and stomps on it.
Well, he sees the act of being a gravedigger as being very visceral. Like I bury the body, that's it, because it's a dead body. So he hates what people do. He enjoys his work. He hates how people interpret his work, I guess.
Yeah. Again, I don't know if I'm reading more into it, but there was some interesting. It's just such a forceful character, and like in many ways. But I just kind of was thinking about those themes as it was going on.
It was interesting that he almost like betrayed his own nihilism at the end though.
Yeah.
Because like the entire time, if truly nihilistic, like he wouldn't care what was about to happen to him because it doesn't fucking matter. Like, is there hell?
Yeah.
Who gives a shit? But the fact that he was like, all right, you could see that he was semi remorseful, just likely just on a selfish stance because he didn't
definitely
create his progeny.
It's the idea of like the atheist dying and then meeting God and being like, oh damn.
Well, there's the old saying like there's an old saying that there's no atheists in the foxhole.
Interesting.
Like where people are throwing bombs. Yeah.
See, I feel like
also-
I missed out because I'm the only one in this group of people who's like I've been to seminary, but I didn't watch the movie, so I can't contribute. So there you go.
Damn, Jody, man, Jody's fucking up over there.
I think Jody should still watch the movie and report back next week.
I'm definitely going to watch it because I've been curious about this series for a long time. I assume this series gets sleazy as it goes along too, because one of the movies is called The Strange Hostel of Naked Pleasures, which sounds like something Joe and I would cover on our show. So
yes, that doesn't have anything to do with the trilogy though. It's definitely kind of outside of that. But but going with the trilogy, Embodiment of Evil is a much more grotesque kind of, not as atmospheric. It's just I don't know really how to explain it. So anything more modern sleazy horror as opposed to the early atmospheric stuff.
All right. Any final thoughts before we do our rating?
I actually have a question.
Hmm?
Is like I thought his funeral appearance was so goddamn remarkable. Do you think showing up to a funeral dressed up like Chuck from Demon Wind is like the best thing you could be doing in order to like, deal with like the grieving?
So if I die and there is an afterlife and I can watch you people at my funeral, if you don't do that now, you're getting haunted, bro. That's all there is to it.
Well, and because you mentioned Demon Wind, I now know what I'm going to have for my next staff pick because I need to make Jason watch that one.
Man, I can't remember what game it was, but I stopped playing it because it was by one of the people who did Rick and Morty. That was ended up being a terrible human being. But the game was ridiculously fun. But you can find a movie theater in the middle of nowhere, and if you walk inside, they're playing Demon Wind, and you can literally watch the entire movie from start to finish. I thought that was just brilliant.
I thought it was Tammy the T-Rex. Was that a different movie or game?
Same game.
Oh, same game. Okay.
I can't remember the name of the game, but it's by some bad people. Well, I shouldn't say not to support it.
No, not everyone on it.
Well, yeah, you're still supporting the voice actors. You're still supporting the other people that work on it, the artists and all that. But
no, Brett that did QAQC on that game grabbed my wife's ass. It's everybody on that game is a piece of shit. I'm just kidding.
No, but that would upset me a little bit.
All right. You heard it here.
Damn.
All right.
That's some Coffin Joe shit right there. That's what you.
I want to see a skit of like Coffin Joe and the Me Too movement. Like Coffin, you can't do that.
The other funny thing too, you can find videos of him at like the age of 75 doing, because he passed away at 83 about 5 years
I saw
ago.
that. Like, only passed away 2020. I'm like, geez.
Yeah, but he would go to, I think he was 78 or almost 80 when he did his last like horror con, and he came out dressed like Coffin Joe. I think they pulled him out in a coffin, still had the nails, everything. Like he knew, man, he lived that persona when he was in the public eye, which is so old school pro wrestling that I have to love it.
Mm-hmm. All right, let's move to our rating. Joe, 0 to 5, 5 being the best, 0 being the worst. You can do half points. What do you get this episode? This movie?
3.5.
All right, Mondo.
I'm a 4 on this one. It's not, again, 4 is an awesome score. It's not my favorite movie ever, but I love it, and I'll watch it again and again and again before I die.
Yeah, this one's movies I'm glad that you exposed me to. It's a character I'm not going to forget. I don't love the movie itself; is okay. So I'm giving with a 3
because Jason hates fun.
I hate fun. Yeah, I love watching the rapist, murderer. That's my deal.
To be fair, he gave the same kind of opinions about my movies, and there was no rape in those as well. So,
Jody, you picked fun movies. To be fair,
I did pick fun movies.
I was bummed I wasn't on those because I was like, "Damn it, I haven't seen that in forever. I'd love to watch that again."
Yeah. All right, Mondo, give us your song of the day.
Alrighty. So, the reason why I brought up earlier the rise of the dictatorship and communism in Brazil is it led directly to the heavy metal movement. Sepultura being one of the main bands, early band to Sarcophago. They kind of feuded for a while for who was the heaviest band in Brazil. It was actually Sarcophago. The Sarcophago is a more evil band. They were playing the early kind of black metal style they adopted from the Europeans, which is really crazy when you think the only way you heard that music back then is if you pen palled with people and got tapes from them that they recorded on a boombox.
That's cool.
So it's really organic. But if you listen to early Sepultura, even the early demos or Schizophrenia or Bestial Devastation, it's all very violent. Talks a lot about nuclear war, stuff like that. Like just things. And it was all based upon the oppressive regime they had in Brazil. But these bands kind of led to all these people opening their eyes to what was happening, younger people especially. So a lot of really interesting bands came out of that era. Holocausto was one of them. I can't remember the name of their first record, but it was all about the horrors of the Holocaust and basically was saying, if we don't change this is what's going to happen here in Brazil. And then, God, I can't remember the band's name because they never really made it that big. But there was one band where they got famous because they would go get human bones and they'd scatter them on the stage, and the drummer would play with femurs. and they weren't good by any means. But man, like there's 16-year-old, 17-year-old kids doing this, right? But the band I want to pick is one, and Sepultura still plays today. They suck, but the Cavalera Brothers, well, Cavalera Brothers era Sepultura is the shit. And if you and those guys still put on one of the best shows I've ever seen live. And but they don't own the rights to the name anymore, sadly. But modern Sepultura, no. But one of the bands that came from that era is Mystifier, and Mystifier still plays to this day. They're an early. I want to say the early stuff was very underground black metal, very kind of mean, I guess. I don't know a good way to put it, except for very primitive. But they still put. I mean, as late as 2022, they're putting out splits and putting out records. But the last full-length record they did is called, and I'm going to butcher this name because I'm pretty sure it's some kind of Portuguese thing, and it's Protogony Mavri Magicae Dynastia. And the song I want to pick off there is called Soul Trap Sorcery of Vengeance, because I think it fits right in with this. But they're a really good Brazilian band that they've had lineup changes over the years, but their new singer is just freaking killer. The guy's great, and it's definitely more polished than it was back then. Decent production. But if anybody actually takes the time to listen to this, listen to the song right after, because they do this thing that I love when metal bands do this, when you have this savage song and followed up with like just a kind of a beautiful little guitar melody instrumental that goes on for a little bit and then goes back into savagery. So, song of the week from the band from Brazil, Mystifier, Soul Trap Sorcery of Vengeance.
Very good. All right, Jody. It's been also got some horror news, so lay it on us.
Yeah, we're actually back on our normal release schedule, right? Like, excellent. All right. Well, so the first piece of news I'm going to give you will be outdated by the time that we actually release this episode, but I want to mention it because I'm very excited about it. We're recording on a Wednesday. This Friday is Joe Bob's second marathon since his first marathon back 6 years ago. They're showing 6 films. It's an all-night long thing. 6 films, 6 seasons, 6 years of Joe Bob. And
you can say we'll be up all night.
You can say we're going to be up all night because Rhonda Shear is going to be on this as well. So I'm excited for this. I'm going to try to make it all night. Usually that wouldn't be a problem, but I've started new meds that help me sleep, which is nice. But also I still want to be here for this. So yeah, that's coming up. As far as new things that have come out and new releases, I'm going to talk about something I don't normally talk about. That's a Sabrina Carpenter video because, you know, I'm a big fan of Taylor Swift and Sabrina Carpenter. Not really. But Sabrina Carpenter's newest video is a riff on the old movie Death Becomes Her, where they are back and forth killing each other, Sabrina Carpenter and Jenna Ortega, who is a, you know, piece of horror royalty now. And the reason why I have to talk about it, the other one in this video is Rohan Campbell, the guy who played Corey in Halloween Ends. And you know, I'm such a fan of that movie and particularly of that character. And so I had to bring it up. But it's a really bloody music video. Like, it's actually a lot of fun. Like, they're really playing with the horror tropes. There's a lot of blood and guts. So many references throughout. Yeah. So even if you're not into the music, definitely worth checking out. A lot of fun. The video is for, what's the name of the song?
I think it's Taste.
Taste is the name of the song.
So did you watch the Dead Meat video?
I haven't yet. Yeah,
so the whole reason I knew about this is because, you know, I'm a big fan of the Dead Meat YouTube channel, and they decided they liked this video so much they decided to do a quick mini kill count on it about all the different for each other and all the references. So there's like a Ginger Snaps reference when she falls on the fence. There's obviously Psycho references. My favorite one is that one, I forget which woman is wearing the same outfit as what's her name? Joan Cusack from Adam's Family Values.
Oh no, that's cool.
Yeah, there's a lot of really fun stuff there. But yeah, it's a great
references.
I'll take us that. Yeah, the most important question I have for you though, Jody, is did this raise your opinion of Rohan?
I mean, he's kind
A
of a
little bit.
background character. He gets murdered, and it's fun, you know.
I mean, hey, if he's being fought over by both Jenna Ortega and Sabrina Carpenter, doing something right.
My goal is to be at a horror con and get a picture with him and just hold the sign that says "I love you, Jody."
Hey, I have nothing against the guy. I just
know.
did not like the character he played. So, you know, I'll give it, if he's in another movie, I'll watch it. I'll give it another chance. I like this music video that he's in. That's better than the entire Halloween Ends movie. Is this 5-minute video? So, yeah.
Mhm.
If we have any newer listeners, if you and you think Jody or I are too positive about something, go back and listen to the Halloween Ends review where Jody just trashes that movie for 2 hours.
Yeah.
There's very few movies that do that too. As far as other releases, let's talk about what just came out recently. Long Legs is out on video. If you have not seen that one yet, I haven't yet. So I'm one of the ones on that list of have not seen it. But I've heard a lot of good things and some mixed opinions.
Yeah. I'm negative on it, but yeah.
Jason is wrong on this one. Long Legs is my.
Listen to the Plug It Up episode because they say pretty much. I told her you guys nailed exactly what I was thinking about this movie.
Well, you know what? They're wrong too. I'm just gonna say.
I mean, okay when you said that.
All right. Other releases. I'm gonna move on before we get in trouble here. In theaters right now, you've got Strange Darling has just recently released, another one that I am excited to watch, and I don't know anything about intentionally. I'm trying to not know anything about it.
Same here. I might go see that tomorrow, and I'm pretty excited.
Yeah, I've heard a lot of good things. We also got some good trailers.
Yes.
Today, we got a trailer I'm very excited about because we have our first real full trailer for Terrifier 3. And I got to say, looks pretty great. As somebody who really enjoyed the second one, this is it looks more polished than either of the other two as well. Like it doesn't have the, you know, how both the Terrifier movies have like this fake 70s filter over the whole thing where like the colors all look kind of like it's supposed to be washed out. I don't see all that in this one.
Yeah.
I see like they're just trying to make a movie and maybe a little less trying to pretend they're a Grindhouse movie. I don't know. Either way, but it's also got art in a Santa Claus costume.
And the trailer was perfect in that it showed you some cool stuff, but it didn't give away too much.
It doesn't give away anything. I don't think
it doesn't give away much of the plot, except for the plot is basically Art's back. And I'm like, I don't need more than that. That's okay.
And
like, of course.
Well,
yeah,
we see what's her name? Is it Sienna?
Sienna. Yeah, she's back.
Yeah. And I think that's why I like this trailer the most because we actually have like a grounding human character.
Yeah. That's I think why I like Terrifier 2 over Terrifier 1. Terrifier 1 just felt like, let me show you all the gore effects I can pull off. Okay, cool. But there was not much story to it.
Right.
There maybe was too much story in Terrifier 2, but I appreciated that over none.
Yeah, in Terrifier 1, the female leads were basically cannon fodder.
Yeah.
They're Art the Clown was a star, and while he is the star in the second one, was it Lauren Lavera?
Yeah.
She's
like
fantastic as the final girl. Where by you're rooting for her by the end of that movie.
Yes.
Like and that's kind of tough to do nowadays when you have like how many times have you watched a movie and it's a slasher film and you're just like, when are they just going to kill everybody?
Yeah,
because I hate all these people, and that's those movies where I really cared about the characters.
Yeah, this is the first of the 3 movies I'm like compelled to go see in the theater because the trailer looks really good. It's a lot of references to Black Christmas, which I love. So I'm really excited about that. And I love the change from the first 2 were Halloween movies, which is great. We all love Halloween type set movies, but by the third one, okay, switched it up a little bit, and I think this is.
I love Christmas horror. Like there's something about mixing the happiest time of year with blood and guts that just really works for me. Also, this one comes out on October 11th, but actually, movies come out a day before they come out, so it comes out on October 10th, which is my birthday, and so that's my birthday present to myself. I'm gonna go watch art.
Happy birthday, Jody! And
all right, another trailer that came out today that I didn't even realize come out, and I need to watch. We have a trailer for VHS Beyond, the newest in the VHS series, coming out on October 4th. So more VHS coming your way pretty soon. One of the The shorts is directed by Kate Siegel, written by Mike Flanagan. So husband and wife working together. You've also got one. It says written and directed by Christian Long and Justin Long, and I'm wondering, is that the Justin Long that we all know from his Mac versus Apple and many other movies since then?
Barbarian.
Yeah, I went all the way back to the he was a Mac. He was
I remember that.
Did I ever tell you when I hung out with Doug Bradley and we were talking about Mac versus PC? So we got some liquor in us, and and a lot of Bass Ale. Doug Bradley likes his Bass Pale Ale, just FYI. And he was talking. And I told him I worked for Apple, and he kind of geeked out over me working for Apple. And this is back when you had to get a jailbroken iPhone because he lived in the UK at the time. And we started talking about making a Mac. When they did the whole "I'm a Mac, I'm a PC" commercials. So we talked about doing one of those commercials. The guy goes, "I'm a Mac," and then all you see is a computer screen bust open and the chains come out and tear the guy's flesh off. And then you see Pinhead walk out with his Mac. And we got to the point where we're drawing this out on napkins. Who knows if it was legible or not? And I wish I still had those.
That's really cool.
All right. Speaking of Mike Flanagan and Kate Siegel, one more important piece of horror news. Hush is now available on digital for the very first time. It has broken the bonds of Netflix. It was a Netflix original and was only available on Netflix up until now.
Do you mean physical?
No, on digital outside of Netflix. It was a Netflix exclusive up until now. He is finally getting out of his all-encompassing Netflix contract. And he's going to be doing some stuff for Amazon, but also he's teased that we might actually get some physical releases of some of these Netflix movies.
He was on Allison's, who's their podcast, and I think he teased something about physical release for that.
Yeah, so if you like Mike Flanagan and if you've never seen Hush, you can now watch it at more places than Netflix, and it's definitely worth watching. I think it's a great slasher.
Yeah, very good,
fantastic, very very unique in how it handles things.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And then lastly, this is just a small piece of news because I'm excited about it. At Chattanooga Film Fest this year, we got to meet Mr. Adam Caesar, who was he introduced Race with the Devil while we were there. And he is an author who wrote a little book called Clown in the Cornfield. And we officially got word today that Clown in a Cornfield is going to be rated R for bloody horror violence and teen drinking. Even though it's technically a young adult novel, it's a lot of fun. It's very bloody. It's a slasher, 100% a slasher. And I really enjoyed it. He's got another one coming out soon, Clown in a Cornfield 3, The Church of Friendo, which will be coming out in August. Coming out this week. So, yeah. More from Adam Caesar.
Because we're talking about Coffin Joe today, one more release coming out is a Blu-ray release of the 2013 anthology series, The Profane Exhibit, which he produced a short for. It's an anthology, along with Ruggiero Deodato's on there from Cannibal Holocaust fame. Uwe Boll does one on there. We all know how much we care about Uwe Boll.
Of what fame?
Everyone is a huge fan.
Uwe Boll of beating up critics fame. You know what? He couldn't do that today. Like, if he did that today and want to fight a critic, he would get the one guy who's like an MMA fighter, just beat the shit out of him. Also, Anthony, I can't remember the guy that did Anthony DiBlasi, who did Malum and Last Shift, is on there.
Okay.
So some really fun people. I've never seen it before, so I pre-ordered the Blu-ray it's from Unearthed Films.
That's all I got.
All right. For our dad advice, school is just starting, getting back in swing for a lot of us. And I just want to check in. Obviously, Mondo, your daughter's out of school, but Joe, Jody, how you doing? How we doing? How the kids adjusting?
I'm in the mix of it. Like, we're in it's the second week of school already, so we are at full activity level. I'm partial chauffeur and then everything in between. I know you guys know how that is, so it's a blender of life.
Yeah, I've got teenagers in my house now, and I've told my wife that we have officially reached the point that I'm just driving people back and forth for 90% of my day.
Oh, I know my daughter's obviously 21 now, but when they're in high school, I would leave work, pick them up, go drive 25 minutes to pick them up from their school because we went to a performing arts school. Drive 25 minutes to my jujitsu gym. They'd hang out and do their homework while I trained. Then we go home around 8 o'clock, make dinner. Like that was my life for 2 years. And you want to know what? Wouldn't trade it for the world.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, I mean, we're still at the same schools. I'm still walking them to and from. And it's actually, again, because my new job is fully remote and it's salary, they say, I keep asking my boss, like, so when do you want me to log on? Like, whenever. Like, when should I leave? Whenever. I'm like, I know, I need boundaries.
Are you guys hiring? Because that sounds
I
like
know, exactly. But yeah, no, it's very nice having the flexibility to like, okay, I'm gonna go pick up my kids now. Everyone's like, okay, we'll see when we get back. You don't have to like don't worry
That's
about
nice.
timekeeping or
That's
anything. So that's been really nice. Yeah, the first week was very chill. So we're in our second week and things are starting to ramp up. And my son has his services and whatnot, so we're still kind of get those together, and needs to get a new aide. And then the biggest thing is that we're going to start doing Sunday school at our synagogue and everything. So my son's going to start going to start like learning like for his bar mitzvah in 3 years, which is crazy. So
Damn,
that's going to be the
cool.
biggest.
That's cool.
Yeah, so usually my wife took my daughter, and I would like have all Sunday just me and him to just do whatever we wanted, and watch football, do housework and stuff. But now we're going to be going there on the weekends, on Sundays. So it'll be a bit of adjustment, but it's just a time of a lot of change.
Yeah,
I remember when I was young, we were watching some movie. I was probably like 10 years old, and they showed a bar mitzvah scene, and I was like, that looks like so much fun. So I said out loud, that looks like so much fun. I wish we were Jewish. And then you know what happened? My dad hit me. My stepdad, David, hit me. Just want to bring this down a little bit.
Yeah.
Hey, the quickest way to become an atheist is to be raised Catholic. I'm just going to say that.
All right. Well, that's our religion talk episode. It's a very Catholic episode, actually, overall.
Oh, hold on a second. Shout out to my Nana who passed away, who was Catholic, who was the perfect embodiment of Catholicism, where she was very big on, if you're a good person, I don't care what you believe in, just be a good person and live a good life. And that's realistically, that's what all religions are trying to say at their core. But the problem is us as humans try to take that and meld it to our different needs and wants, and kind of like what some people want to do with our government.
It's an election year.
Yeah, it's only we're coming down to the wire. It's only get worse.
Alex is Brazilian too. We're talking about Brazilians. Jason raised his eyebrows. I think he thinks I'm going to go with Brazilian waxes. But
No.
would you do that? Like if someone offered you a free Brazilian wax, would you go for it? No. Okay.
You see how much hair I have on my face? Just imagine the rest of my body.
I just had the image of a dick and balls hanging beneath Jason's beard. Now I can't fucking unsee it.
Back the way.
Jody, if you can get on that Photoshop, please let me know.
The reference images I'll need for that, let's
Jason,
wait on that one.
Can you get a shot of your dick and balls of Jody? That's
on our Only Dads page.
Here's my other little bit of dad advice. Tomorrow is the biggest old man jiu-jitsu competition in the United States, IBGF World Masters, which I paid $165 to compete at, and my back is fucked. So I will not be competing because I do not want to get further injured because I'm 41 years old, and I don't think it's worth it to compete for a little plastic piece of metal, a little plastic medal. But so what I want to say is, people out there, we're getting older, man. Take care of your bodies. We spend so much money on so much weird shit. Spend money on your body. Because I went today to my buddy Mike Edwards in Las Vegas, who I'm not 100%, but I was 20% yesterday. I'm about 65% today. So I just want to give him a shout out for the work he did on me. And older people, take care of your goddamn bodies.
Yeah. It's one of those things. Once you hit 40, you spend much more time and energy and money on that.
Money well spent, though.
Yes. No, I remember when I got my first big raise, first thing I did, I bought a good pillow. like a nice. I spent real money on a real pillow, and it makes a huge difference.
Dude, I just bought at the recommendation of a friend of mine on running shoes, those like trendy running shoes that are out
Yeah.
there. You want to know what? Most fucking comfortable things I've ever comfortable shoes I've ever put on my feet.
Nice.
$150. I've never spent that much money on shoes, but I'm like worth every goddamn penny.
That's like a thing you learn in like you start to learn in your 30s is spending good money on good shoes.
Apparently I didn't. Apparently it took me to
Yeah.
41 to
I was
learn
gonna
that.
say I don't know. I grew up with my dad, and when I was a kid, we'd go look for shoes, and we'd find discounted and all this stuff, and I
Mhm.
bring it back, and like, how much were they? Were like, oh, we got these for $30. Like $30 shoes? I don't know about that.
Well, kids just grow so quickly in and out of shoes, and they just tear the hell out of them. Yeah.
I'm talking about like as a teenager. Like,
Yeah.
my friends had Jordans. They were $150 in 1995 money. Like.
Yeah.
That's like $8,000 today at this point.
And Mono, just to circle back, I was thinking of Brazilian steakhouse, Brazilian barbecue.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Have you guys ever been to one of those?
Yes.
I've
Yes.
not.
Amazing.
Big
I
fan
have-
of Brazilian
I want to.
steakhouses.
I love it so much.
So do you know how it works?
Me?
We have a Fogo de Chao down the street.
Yeah. Okay.
Jody, do you know how it works?
Yeah, I'm aware of the swords with the steaks and the slicing and the meat sweats.
Oh, the meat
That is,
sweat.
but the best part about it is, depending on which one you go to, they give you a sign or a card. Green means bring me more meat. Red means I'm good for now. So,
No,
So,
I remember when. Oh, go ahead.
no, say my dad advice also for Brazilian steakhouses are they're gonna offer you bread and vegetables and all this stuff that's good. Well, bread's not good for you, but vegetables that are good for you. Their goal is to fill you up before you eat the fucking
Yeah.
steak. No, you shove as much meat in your mouth as possible.
Yeah, but when I
Slide down
first
your
moved,
Earn
when I
those
first
meat
moved to LA, my friends said they want to take me out for dinner. They didn't really. I said, "Where?" Like, "Oh, some steakhouse." They took me to a Fogo. I never heard of it before. I mean, I've heard of Brazilian steakhouse. I never really knew exactly the extent. And yeah, I had the meat sweats. Like I was like in the back of the car, like in agony, in
Would you say
beautiful
that-
agony.
Would you say it's the most meat you've ever had in your mouth at one time?
It's up there. It's a lot of meat. But actually, one other thing I really love, my wife loved these, are the bread balls with the cheese in them are amazing. So I know.
We have Texas de Brazil, and they have a lobster bisque usually as one of their appetizers. And yeah, you got to go for the lobster bisque.
And actually, I went to Fogo a couple months ago with my wife, and they had this like halloumi cheese with honey drizzled on top, like seared. And it was I think I liked it more than the meat. It was like the perfect bite. It was amazing.
Man, so the other day when I had food, I had food poisoning a couple days ago, which is why we're recording this today, and which is another reason why the world has conspired against me for doing this. My last 3 fucking tournaments, COVID, this shit. So the world is conspiring against me from competing ever again. Maybe it's a sign. But I forgot where I was going. I had a fucking point to this, and I just lost it. I'm old. What are you gonna do? I get hit in the head a lot.
You
Protect
paid
your brain,
to get
people,
hit.
because this shit will happen if you don't.
All right. Well, Joe, thank you so much for joining us. Where can people follow you in your mini podcasts?
Find us wherever you get your podcasts. And on the socials, we're not really on Twitter anymore. I barely am on Threads and Instagram, but that is FFS_podcasts. We are on Films at First Sight on Blue Sky. It really just go out to your local cinema. Do me a favor, go out to your local cinema, support them, and keep all of those chains alive. Keep seeing cool movies in the theaters.
Cool. All right. Well, next week, I think we're going to do Beetlejuice with maybe some of our offspring. I was going to tie it into this movie, and then I realized that's a terrible idea. But it's going to be a very fun time.
And for the record, I'll probably be off the next few episodes because I'm traveling for work, not because Jason put me in timeout. I just want to say that. Although it makes me laugh every time you say that, so it's fine.
You like it when they punish you.
Not you
All right.
particularly, but other people. Mm-hmm.
Okay. We appreciate everyone for listening. We'd appreciate it if you give us a rating and review on iTunes or rating on Spotify. Check out our YouTube for videos of these podcasts and check us out at Dads from the Crypt Talk on TikTok. With that, we thank you for listening to Dads from the Crypt.
Follow Dads from the Crypt on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram, or I will follow you to the grave. No, seriously, you really should watch. But be careful what you ask for. You may get it.